All right, so in case you guys have missed it over the last couple of days, this is so funny to me. The Fandom Menace FNT Fellowship crew, whatever you want to call them, has been in full panic mode, outraged, upset, and jumping in the line of defense for Nerdrotic, for Gary. And it's all over a random tweet thread from, and no offense to this person, but someone that, I mean, it could have been anybody on Twitter. This isn't some large account with like, you know, hundreds of thousands of followers. It's literally just a random person on Twitter. And they've been so outraged that they had to make video after video. And I'm not kidding you. Look at the videos here. This is just a few of them. We got Ryan Cannell here, Yellow Flash, Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers did 2 videos about it. John Gaming Future, I don't know who that person, Fun Time, and Demion. There's just a few of them. And you can search on YouTube. There's a lot more. Of all of these guys who feel like, I guess, driven to be the bestest boys. They have to be the bestest boys for Gary because Gary is the only one out of that entire group that is keeping the rest of them relevant outside of their very niche audience. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of the guys out there, but it is true. If you look at the growth of those channels compared to like Gary, there's no comparison. There's no comparison. So they are desperately trying to show Gary that they give the best reach arounds by running to the line of defense for him. And this is funny to me. We're going to look at the tweet here in a second because I actually think the tweet has a lot of really good points in it, stuff that we've been saying for a while, but it triggered these guys so much. And I do mean triggered. This is being triggered. When people come into my comments like, oh, you're just triggered. No, this is triggered. When someone on Twitter, just some random account says something negative and this is your reaction to it, this is being triggered. Don't they have bigger fish to fry? Are the Acolyte checks like is that gone now? And it's like there's no money in talking positively about stuff and there's nothing to shit on right now. Like they like Deadpool and Wolverine. I guess they like House of the Dragon. So there's really nothing to talk about at the moment. So they need to find something to keep the outrage going. Because like I've said before, and I said this on another stream, a plumber doesn't have a job if there's no pipes to fix. And these guys sell outrage. So without outrage, they make no money. They get no engagement on that. Or a lot lower engagement, I should say. So they have to come up with something. So now it's defending Nerdrotic. And this reminds me a lot of when there was a meme, this is like a few months ago, a meme that came up about Nerdrotic's wife from Ripoff Verse, where he posted a picture of Miss Piggy and Nerdrotic's wife, and it was like, it was buried pretty much in a reply. And it probably would have gone away, most likely. But they couldn't help it. They had to take that bait, and they made tons of videos about it. And now Gary's wife has to see that all over the place. It probably would have just gone away. Like, that's one of those things where it's such a small, tiny thing compared to what these guys are doing that it wouldn't have meant anything. But then they amplified it. All of them amplified it. They made multiple videos about it. There was an entire article on Geeks and Gamers about it. So it's kind of weird behavior to me because I don't think Gary is this soft. I don't think Gary, and this is a compliment to Gary. Gary doesn't typically get into the mudslinging. That's not something he does. Gary is a shit poster for money. And that's his job on the internet. He shit posts for money. And so I never see him, at least not often, going back and forth with people or making videos about people. So he lets everyone else do it for him. And this is weird behavior. This is weird behavior. Because look at some of these titles, and I'm going to read these titles, and then we're going to look at the tweet, and you can see why this is weird behavior. Nerdrotic attacked by woke freaks. They want him gone. Pathetic thread goes viral. Well, it went viral because you guys were talking about it. Him attacks Nerdrotic, and it backfires. Does it, though? Because that person now is getting tons of traction because of this. Nerdrotic must be stopped. My truth. Look, this is a Deadpool and Wolverine explodes at box office. That's a positive thing, but that's not going to bring in money. So woke freaks can't stand Nerdrotic. Let's just put Nerdrotic and Deadpool in thumbnail together. Okay. Nerdrotic attacked for having opinions. This person didn't even bother to make a proper thumbnail. They hate him. Yeah, I think a lot of people probably do hate him. But this is crazy to me because it's just, it just shows what the priorities are. And for them, the priorities are not about their normal content. It's about making sure that Nerdrotic knows that they are kissing the ring and that they can stay in his good graces. And again, there's this isn't all the videos. This is just the ones that came up at the top of the search. Okay, so now let's look at the actual tweet thread that started all of this. All right, so this is from Grayson Minute Nerd News, and I'd seen this account a couple times before, so I was aware of it, but wasn't totally sure if, like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to engage with the account. But then I saw this post and I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. So Nerdrotic is a piece of shit that we've allowed to operate amongst us for far too long, a thread. So I've done several videos about Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker, and most of them are filled with the most idiotic, brain dead minion replies you could possibly imagine. So we're not going to read through those, but we are going to read the thread here. All right, it says, before I focus my attention solely on this garbage, let us first focus our attention on the explanation of what he is and what his little grifter friends do, explained by one of them. Now, this is a clip that I've used many times where Jeremy admits that they take one tiny thing, they build a narrative out of it, and they just make video after video after video. We've seen this clip before. We're not going to watch it, but that's what the clip says. That's right, folks. They sell you outrage and anger. This is what they do. They make mountains out of molehills to capitalize on any insignificant frustration their target demographic might be feeding and heighten the issue rather than to tame it. And then, you know, obviously this picture here, which the funny thing about this statement is that's exactly what they've done with this tweet. This is a rather, no offense again to the person posting this, but this is rather insignificant to them in the big scheme of things. But they're making a mountain out of a molehill. No, that won't be news to you, I realize. Nerdrotic has an obsession with the concept that anyone who isn't straight, white, or male might make an appearance or God forbid, lead a solo project. Yeah, this again has been proven. I mean, for every like one woman character that he likes, there's thousands of them that he doesn't. He'll find every excuse under the sun to dislike them. And that's just not a normal reaction. I'm sorry, it's not. Like, people don't generally feel that way if they are positive about projects featuring other people, but it's a very common thing with Nerdrotic. But of course, he has praise for the MCU, but only when it involves movies that the main protagonist is a white male and straight. Marvel has only experienced one failure in its entire history as lackluster some box office with Phase 4 and 2 movies crossing 1 billion. That's also true. And I brought that up before, is that Marvel, this is the thing they won't tell their fans. Marvel is an IP, like an umbrella franchise, where everything is connected in a way so that the big successes lift up the failures or the ones that underperform. So unless something is catastrophically a failure, like undeniably bad, which again, there hasn't been any of those that I can think of other than the Marvels that has really done that poorly. Everything else it bottoms out. It sort of flatlines. That's just the way the industry works. Let's see. He's just generally a racist. With so much to this point, he should honestly just come out and admit that he's a white supremacist. Never mind he's racially charged comments. Oh, never mind his racially charged comments about Echo. Check out the comments on the jokes that won't make it in. So yeah, I've talked about this before with the with all of his thumbnails and stuff like that, the microaggressive stuff. I've tried not to just call people racist outright, but then there's a pattern of behavior where someone does racist things so often and seems to not care that those things are racist. Like, for example, if I said something that was problematic and I did it a few times and somebody's like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that, it's problematic. And then you're like, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Cool, I'll change it up or whatever, because I don't want to piss anybody off. But that's not what Gary does. Gary just doubles down on everything. So yeah, it says, you're just a little boy with a camera and a microphone. Take that away. And what are you? Racist, homo, transphobic, misogynistic. I mean, he's calling it like he sees it, I guess. He's such a problematic person that his whereabouts on January 6th could be brought into question, and I bet you wouldn't blink a fucking eye. This Elon Musk nutsack liquor interacts with people currently advocating for civil war if the election is once again stolen. Yeah, so someone said this. I can't remember what channel I saw it on, but someone said that channels like Nerdrotic and a lot of these other guys are actually, and I know we briefly talked about it on the shill streams, they're actually upset they can't talk about politics more than like in a 4-year gap. So like every election year they get to talk about politics, but those other 3 years, there's not a lot of ground to cover for them because they're not really heavily involved in politics. They just like the polarizing aspects of the presidential election. So they stay away from all of the other political stuff typically. So they decided to repackage all of that political propaganda in like communities, like fandoms and things like that. And so they use this as a vehicle between the 4-year election gaps. And that's typically what we've seen. And so I'm not surprised that these replies and engagements exist. This guy is stuck in a never-ending circle jerk, literally built on the back of shitting on suppressed voices and oppressed minorities. If it's not a straight white man, he doesn't want it. In fact, he'll dedicate his time to shitting on it for 2 weeks or more. I'll leave this thread off with this directly at you, Nerdrotics. Joking ever attempting to further suppress an already suppressed voice is a fucking disgusting way to spend your free time. You're a grifter. It's all you'll ever be. Shots fired. You may have sobered up and seen firsthand how difficult that is and must have been for you, but you've relapsed in addiction. You're addicted to hatred and negativity. You're addicted to the engagement it brings and furthers your hatred and negativity. Well, I mean, he's admitted that he sells, I think he called it like engagement crack. So he totally understands. He knows what he's doing. Yeah, look, and what's worse, you know what you're doing, which means, the harm it causes, not just the people you're shitting on, but the fandom as a whole. We're the ones that have to deal with your dumbass fans fucking up our vibe. But see, that is their sort of deniability about all this. They're not telling people to do stuff. The people they're talking to decide to do it on their own, and they hold no responsibility for it. And that is their whole concept behind what they do, is they can stir up the hornet's nest and then walk away from it. I've been saying that for years. I said that about Eric July, and people are like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I mean, they incite this kind of shit, and then they turn off their computer and live their lives and don't give a fuck about the damage it causes from all the people on the internet who are completely brain rotted and take everything they say as gospel. You are filth. If I saw you in real life, I'd spit at your feet. Wow. I generally hope you educate yourself, because the way I see it currently, you aren't worth the cloud space to keep your videos up. The comment alone encapsulates how garbage you are. And then he says, after having reservation about Echo, Disney Marvel's moving forward with their big gamble. P.S. This is even the worst of it. I just shared what's actually fucking digestible. P.P.S. I had a bunch of check marks. Yeah, so the actual replies of this are pretty bad. Anyway, the thing about it is, for me, none of this is news. All of this stuff that he's saying about Gary is pretty much, if you've watched me or you've watched any of my stuff with the initiative, you'll know that we have talked about this heavily for a very long time. And I'm glad other people are branching out and speaking out about it. Bottom line, these are political channels wrapped up in fandom. That's what they are. That's the reason why all of them sort of exist in the same area. If you'll look where a lot of them live and a lot of them interact with each other, they all sort of exist in the same area, these little pockets of places. And they do so because that is where they can engage with people face to face. They can have these little get-ups, these little meetings and things like that with people who feel the same way they feel. It's a very much that kind of vibe. So I'm not totally shocked about it. But I will say it's funny to me to once again see all of these other guys who think they're such a big deal kiss Gary's ass, kiss the ring, bend the knee, give the reach around, whatever you want to call it, because somebody made a thread about Gary on Twitter. And so they have to go in and attack it. And then the Streisand effect happens. It was totally, they could have just ignored this completely. But I'm telling you, they sell outrage. And so their fans are eating this up. These might have been some of the biggest videos they've had since Acolyte ended. And I would not be shocked at all, other than the political stuff. Anyway, let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. And I will see everyone in the next video. Take care.